In the city of Washu, a chilling manhwa begins as residents mysteriously vanish. The police issue a desperate plea for citizens to avoid venturing out alone at night. Our main character finds themselves in a perplexing predicament, bound in a dimly lit room with an unknown man. The police advise against taking taxis and encourage people to contact them if they sense danger. Just as tension mounts, a small black cat emerges from the shadows, only to be seized by an unseen force. Suddenly, a system window materializes before our protagonist, revealing a bone-chilling message: "Welcome to Horror Hotel System." It appears a sadistic maniac is on the prowl, targeting unsuspecting victims on rainy nights. As the cries of the unfortunate cat echo in their ears, the main character finds themselves transported back 5 hours to a panic room where they had been scaring people as part of a job. Unfortunately, their performance failed to impress the audience, who dismissed it as mundane in today's world. Disheartened, they confide in a colleague about their sleepless night due to an important matter they were investigating, a task assigned by the police academy. The colleague questions why someone as talented as our main character would engage in such side jobs, but the truth is, they do it out of financial necessity. Still, their colleague assures them of a promising future, suggesting that focusing solely on academic pursuits would yield greater rewards. Little do they know, the case our main character is investigating is far from a mere homework assignment. It holds a deeply personal connection to their childhood and the loss of someone dear to them. Despite the passage of time, the killer remains at large, and the incident has faded from public memory. But our main character hasn't forgotten a single detail. The yearning for revenge burns within them, a desire to make the culprit pay, regardless of the cost. After completing their shift, our protagonist hails a taxi to head home. The driver complains about the never-ending rain, but our main character remarks that it benefits them, as more passengers seek refuge in warm taxis. The driver counters with a grim revelation. Recently, a maniac has been posing as a taxi driver, luring unsuspecting victims to their demise. Despite extensive searches, the police have yet to apprehend the culprit, leaving people wary of taxis altogether. Unbeknownst to them, the hooded figure appears in the middle of the road, causing the driver to panic and lose control. The car hurtles into a ravine, and as our main character regains consciousness momentarily, they spot the hooded man wielding a knife. Amidst the mysterious system that has ensnared him, Sujao finds himself compelled to follow its instructions in order to crack the case. The maniac, incensed by the interference of the cat, emerges from the shadows, intimidating the terrified bound taxi driver. However, Sujao remains unfazed, challenging the maniac's self-proclaimed status as a hunter and predator. He asserts that the maniac merely exploited the situation, lacking true hunting skills. This audacious challenge surprises the maniac, and Sujao proposes a test. Let the maniac try to capture them again before dawn. If successful, he may finish his gruesome work. The game is on. As they make their escape, the maniac vehemently declares that they will never leave his clutches. With no means of escape and barred windows, the desolate location appears to be outside the city, a macabre playground for the maniac's twisted crimes. Sujao reveals himself as a determined individual with criminal investigation training, knowledge of law and medicine, and experience working in the fear room. In their search, they stumble upon a gruesome sight that even prompts the taxi driver to vomit. Undeterred, Sujao retrieves their belongings, including a broken phone, regretting their decision to leave the safety of their home. Sujao perceives the maniac as overconfident, a complete fool for not thoroughly inspecting the bags. Armed with a knife, Sujao resolves to bring this game to its conclusion. Meanwhile, the maniac, scratching a peculiar rash on his hand, grows increasingly desperate to complete his final test with little time left. As he enters a room and locks the door behind him, trapping the hidden taxi driver, Sujao dons a skeleton mask, silently appearing behind the maniac with a knife in hand. The maniac turns, bewildered, but finds no one there. Suddenly, Suzhou presses the knife against the maniac's throat, leaving him baffled and hurling insults. The maniac had failed to notice Suzhou's secret knife. Attempting to retreat, the maniac realizes the door he had locked is now inaccessible. Suzhou, standing directly behind the maniac, raises a question. Why is he trying to escape? In the twisted game of hunter and hunted, it seemed the maniac had forgotten their roles. Suzhou declared that the next stage, where they would try to kill each other, would be thrilling. The maniac's knife fell to the floor, as who would dare to engage in such a deadly game with Suzhou? Desperate, the maniac pounded on the door, screaming for help, but Suzhou silenced him by stabbing the door. The game would continue until dawn, a rule set by the maniac himself. Confused, the maniac questioned Suzhou's identity, but Suzhou insisted he remain quiet. With a knife poised next to the maniac's finger, Suzhou forced him to choose which finger he cherished most. As fear gripped the maniac, Suzhou revealed his plan to cut off the chosen finger and make the maniac consume it. Overwhelmed, the maniac crumbled to the floor, paralyzed with terror. Suddenly, a system window appeared before Suzhou, congratulating him for foiling the Rainy Night Killer's final sinister celebration. But the game's cruel nature would meet an equally cruel punishment. As a reward, the system provided Professor Young with an electric chair, an unyielding interrogator that would subject its occupants to endless torment. Suzhou activated the House of Horrors, finding it amusing. Startled, the maniac awoke in a car, with Suzhou posing as the taxi driver. The maniac screamed, unsure of their destination. Suzhou informed him they were heading to where he truly belonged. Bloodstains mysteriously appeared on the car windows, and Suzhou mentioned the significant date of February 3, 2000, the maniac's birthday. Memories flooded back as Suzhou described the maniac's initial victim, a woman taken to the forest under the guise of a taxi ride. The maniac was responsible for 3 subsequent disappearances, leaving a trail of grief and sorrow. Suzhou compelled the maniac to face the vengeful spirits of his victims outside the window, driving him into a state of terror. In the electric chair, the maniac regained consciousness, realizing it had all been a hallucination. Suzhou offered him a twisted form of amusement, pulling the lever on Professor Young's electric chair. The maniac cried out, proclaiming Suzhou to be the devil and their eventual reunion in hell. Suzhou assured him that only the maniac would meet that fate and left him behind. To the outside observer, Suzhou appeared as an unfortunate victim. Suzhou assured the taxi driver that they were now safe, free to leave together. Unaware of the terror Suzhou had unleashed, the taxi driver fainted. Later, Suzhou contacted his friend Chenmo from the South Asian Police Department, sharing the harrowing tale of being kidnapped by a perverted maniac. Chenmo, recalling Suzhou's past triumph against a slave trader, believed his friend's shocking account. Promising to bring help, Chenmo dispatched several police cars to the scene. As the police arrived, the taxi driver wept, finally relieved. Suzhou emerged from the building wearing a white doctor's coat, clutching a sharp knife. Guns were drawn, commanding Suzhou to drop the weapon, but Chenmo intervened, clarifying the situation. It was a misunderstanding. Suzhou had called the police as the victim, having been abducted after work, explaining his bewildered state. In a bizarre turn of events, Suzhou realizes that the maniac, believed to be dead for over 15 hours, was actually alive and had been kidnapping victims. Rigor mortis analysis ruled out any skin diseases, leaving Suzhou puzzled by the maniac's sudden collapse. Chenmo's knowing expression hints at something more sinister. This marks the 4th peculiar incident in the past 2 months. Killers who are already corpses. An unexpected system notification brings an additional reward, a butcher's cloak that camouflages one's presence. Suddenly, a red-haired reporter bursts onto the scene, eager to uncover the truth. Mistaking Suzhou for the maniac, she bombards him with questions about his crimes and past murders. Chenmo defends Suzhou, asserting that he is a victim. The girl examines Suzhou once again, realizing he is merely an employee of a haunted house, his prop weapon harmless. The real killer is in the car, lifeless. Suzhou leaves, leaving the confused reporter behind. In the amusement park, Suzhou reads news headlines and user comments, shocked to find a photo of himself in the articles. An unknown number calls the phone, and it's the reporter girl again. She insists on an interview, but Suzhou denies her offer. Frustrated, she yells at her colleagues. The system notifies Suzhou of a new mission, the Bloody Palms in the amusement park, set to begin soon. Suzhou must confront a crazed clown hiding amidst the laughter. With no solid evidence, Suzhou takes matters into his own hands. Wang Ming interrupts, seeking help for a stomachache, startling Suzhou. He agrees to cover for Wang Ming as a butcher while he uses the restroom. Suzhou changes into a butcher's uniform and heads to the amusement park. A couple revisits the House of Horrors, but this time it's different. The manager, Manager Wu, has incorporated Suzhou's story into the attraction. Suzhou glimpses a peculiar man at the end of the corridor, wondering what Manager Wu has in mind and questioning his shrewd business sense. As Suzhou gazes down the corridor, he spots a peculiar man at the end. Clad in a cloak that conceals his face, the man grips a spiked whip in his hand. Their eyes lock for a moment before the mysterious figure vanishes. Suzhou realizes that they don't recall such a leather suit in the House of Horrors. If the system instructed the task to begin today, they have no choice but to investigate. With determination, Suzhou ventures into the dark corridor, only to find the visitors have mysteriously vanished. Curiosity leads them to a closed door, and as they enter the room, the door slams shut behind them. Is someone pursuing them? Suzhou attempts to open the door, but a voice through the speaker advises them not to waste their strength. The speaker announces the arrival of the last player, Mr. Wang Deifa, into the game. Though fear washes over everyone, they willingly sought thrills when they entered this House of Horrors. What did they expect? The exit is blocked, and the only alternative lies in an underground bomb shelter from 1980. To escape, 5 participants must navigate a maze, encountering monsters along the way. Suzhou asserts that they're not here for a brush with death, disappointing the unknown speaker who had meticulously planned everything, counting on Wang's participation. Suzhou explains that Lil Wang requested to be replaced due to a stomachache. The speaker dismisses it, urging everyone to proceed. However, the little girl in the group advises following the speaker's instructions, as they have no way back to the House of Horrors. She guarantees their safe departure, insisting that they search for weapons to defend themselves and destroy surveillance cameras to decrease the threat level. Moving silently as a group, they investigate their surroundings, wary of the enemy's potential teamwork. Suzhou shouts through the open door, challenging the killer to come and attack him, claiming he's paid insurance for injuries. The girl rebukes him, explaining that the killer would only harm others if Suzhou's screams attract attention. She asserts her leadership and divides the group, instructing Suzhou to go left while the rest go right, citing the importance of not leaving anyone behind. The girl questions Suzhou's sanity, reminding him that those who stay behind often meet a grim fate. Suzhou reassures her, believing that in horror movies, main characters rarely die when left behind. He also points out that this rule applies to the enemy as well. The girl takes notice of the knife in Suzhou's hand and mentions his appearance in a headline about a serial killer on a rainy night. She wonders if Suzhou is a murderer posing as an employee, but the reports also claimed the criminal was dead. How could Suzhou be the killer? Undeterred, Suzhou proceeds down the corridor, unaware that someone is closely observing. They find Suzhou intriguing, but question how long he can maintain his facade of coolness. The man notices Suzhou mysteriously vanishing from the surveillance cameras. Suzhou dons a cloak to conceal himself, uncertain if he's successfully hidden. Suddenly, a sound catches their attention, causing concern among the others. The girl explains that the killers use such sounds as bait. Going against the noise is the right choice, as no sane person would move towards it, except Suzhou. Inside a room, Suzhou encounters a crying girl, asking why she's alone instead of sleeping. As the girl turns around, her face contorts into a terrifying expression, pleading for her uncle to save her. Suzhou brandishes a knife, insisting the girl call them Big Brother. Confused, the girl expected the visitors to be ordinary people with a fear of death. So who is this enigmatic figure before her? Suzhou grabs the girl's hand, questioning her once more. It dawns on Suzhou that the girl is also a lifeless corpse, evoking a mix of fear and relief. Suzhou jests about the electric chair, which unsettles the others. The sound grows louder, and the question arises, could someone be approaching? Suzhou remains absent, prompting one person to investigate while another suggests forgetting about them. Discovering a potential exit behind a door, they rush to check it out. However, they're met with a putrid stench and a horde of decomposing bodies. The girl wonders how such a pile of corpses could be hidden beneath an amusement park. Urgently warning the group, the girl declares it's a trap, but as she turns around, she spots a colleague wielding a syringe. Confused, she succumbs to unconsciousness. The colleague admits they shouldn't have joined the group, expressing disappointment that their fun was ruined. They plan to frame the victims as the previous group, embroidering pig heads on their faces and sealing their fate. Believing they could kill solely on instinct, the colleague fails to grasp how they received the invitation from Mr. Saw. Only one victim remains, Suzhou. At that moment, a strange man peers into the room, questioning the little girl's identity and the sudden appearance of an electric chair. Suzhou realizes the girl knows nothing and refuses to speak. Determined, Suzhou seeks answers elsewhere. The strange man attempts to leave but clumsily reveals himself. Unfazed, Suzhou encourages them to come forward, promising a great time together. The killer flees, pursued by Suzhou, arguing that they're both doing the same thing and there's no point in killing each other. Suzhou counters, claiming to be a victim while accusing the killer of being a murderer. Suzhou questions the involvement of the eyeless little girl. The killer is shocked that Suzhou could confront her face to face. Suzhou bombards the girl with questions, but she remains clueless. However, it's impossible to lead a normal life after witnessing her inhuman face. The killer starts losing consciousness and wakes up strapped to the electric chair. Suzhou informs the killer that they'll experience what their partner did. Meanwhile, the syringe-wielding guy wonders where the swineherd vanished, finding it challenging to catch one person. Noticing a light in a room, the guy investigates and discovers the killer in the electric chair with Suzhou. Astonished, Suzhou questions why the guy returned alone after taking a different path. The guy is shocked by what he witnesses. Suzhou blames the killer for provoking them, necessitating resistance. Suzhou is not finished with the killer yet, suspecting accomplices. Asking about the others, Suzhou notices the guy concealing a syringe but not responding. Unmasking the guy's true intentions through his actions, thoughts, and facial expression, Suzhou reveals their knife. Realizing escape is the better choice, the guy, relying solely on their intellect, refuses to engage in close combat with the psycho. Suzhou remarks on the rudeness of fleeing after their encounter since they're innocent and harmless. Suddenly, a system window appears, signaling the mission is only half complete. A hulking figure resembling Frankenstein appears, claiming to be their secret and perfect weapon. Unfazed, Suzhou brandishes a massive chainsaw, challenging them to attack. The system congratulates Suzhou on receiving an additional subject, a bloody chainsaw. Perplexed, the guy wonders if Suzhou is the legendary chainsaw killer and questions the source of the chainsaw. Suzhou taunts the guy, revealing they are not just a chainsaw-wielding killer or a corpse, but a living entity. The guy determines the only option is to ensure Suzhou's demise and orders the butcher to dismember them. However, moments later, the butcher lies dead. Suzhou explains that the butcher appeared strong but was ultimately weak. The guy watches in shock and decides to flee. Suzhou plans to change into clean clothes, and outside, the police have cordoned off the building. A colleague informs Chenmo that they've found a way out of the bomb shelter, and the search team is prepared. Chenmo realizes the disappearance case in the amusement park may be connected to an incident 3 years ago. Ensuring the safety of the hostages as their top priority, the police enter the building. Chenmo senses movement coming their way. The guy rushes out, claiming he was waiting for the police. Chenmo asks about the other people and the whereabouts of the criminal. The guy confesses to being the culprit and urges them to arrest him, dismissing his own importance. He mentions that after 10 years, the chainsaw killer has returned, just as the killer, Su Zhao, appears and chases him. Chenmo begins to understand what transpired, realizing this is Su Zhao's workplace. Su Zhao mentions that there are still people inside, urging the police to send someone to search for them. Su Zhao leads Chenmo to a room full of people. The little girl regains consciousness in the hospital, assured by the police that the criminal has been apprehended and she's safe. As memories flood back, she screams, inquiring about the blonde employee from the ghost house. The girl reveals that Su Zhao is also in the hospital, the only victim who didn't lose consciousness, currently being questioned by the police. The other victims have awakened, but are mentally unstable. Impressively resilient, the little girl believes Su Zhao saved everyone. She discloses that Su Zhao single-handedly confronted 3 violent criminals, a feat beyond an ordinary person. Su Zhao found her just in time, allowing her to survive. Out on the street, the girl discovered Su Zhao, convinced that he couldn't deceive everyone forever. She claims that only she knows Su Zhao's true identity and questions why he broke ties initially, how he escaped the assassin's attack, and how he managed to kill the criminals. With 2 consecutive murder cases, the girl asserts that Su Zhao orchestrated the entire game. Believing she has found Su Zhao's weakness, she promises to watch him until she uncovers proof of his role as the mastermind. Su Zhao dismisses her and urges her to leave, but she persists, taunting him about his carefully crafted plans and disappointment. Just as Su Zhao starts running, the system announces another task. Lil Yining continues pursuing him, realizing his pursuit of the perfect crime. A policewoman intervenes, leading the girl back to the hospital despite her protests. Su Zhao briefly relaxes, but his peace is short-lived when Wang Ming questions why he didn't answer her calls. Su Zhao recalls blocking her number and realizes she's a persistent journalist who contacted him 48 times. Wang Ming interrogates Su Zhao, linking him to 2 murder cases and insinuating connections with the killers and controlling organizations. Suspecting his evasion, she presents her findings of ongoing mass murders in the city. She challenges Su Zhao's claim of ignorance despite repeatedly facing assassins unscathed. Growing frustrated, Wang Ming confronts Su Zhao, threatening to publish an article exposing him. Su Zhao pins her against a wall, revealing that he didn't block her number, merely disconnecting his phone. If Wang Ming had truly called him so many times, she would have known. He questions her journalistic approach, suggesting framing him as a criminal instead of portraying him as a victim. Su Zhao dismisses Wang Ming's flawed interview methods, finding her deception laughable. He maintains that he never knew her because she's an imposter. Wang Ming praises Su Zhao's intelligence and skill in taking down the assassins, acknowledging his uncanny accuracy. The fake Wang Ming quickly confesses after Su Zhao plays a prank on her, revealing her lack of intelligence for high-class crimes. The policewoman notices Su Zhao seemingly talking to himself and suggests he undergo a mental examination, especially considering his wall-slapping incident. Su Zhao realizes the fake Wang Ming has disappeared, and he spots a pair of red eyes behind a fence, a creepy puppet of a little boy. He brushes off the incident, claiming he was rehearsing a comedy skit, and leaves to focus on his mission. Meanwhile, a guy boards a bus as the last passenger. He pulls out a knife, and the bus abruptly goes dark, leaving the confused driver stranded. In an alley, Su Zhao encounters 2 unfamiliar girls who claim to be lost and in need of his help. One girl feigns a sprained ankle, and Su Zhao agrees to assist. Unbeknownst to him, the girls have ulterior motives. As Su Zhao rummages through his bag, he surprises the girls with various items, including a giant pair of scissors and a rope. They notice blood on Su Zhao's shoe and question why there was no trace of it after stepping in a mud puddle. Su Zhao plays along, but he has already discovered what he was looking for: their true intentions. He unveils a chainsaw, revealing his dark intentions. One of the girls launches an attack, while the other panics and tries to escape. The frightened girl pleads for her life, willing to divulge anything Su Jiao wants to know. Curious about the heightened activity in the Yanning district, Su Jiao learns that an important party is happening tonight. The assassins from the district are invited and must bring a body part from a victim to secure entry, boarding the last bus on Route 870. The girl confesses all she knows and begs to be released. Just then, a system window appears, presenting Su Jiao with a new and unknown task called Hunting Night. He must attend the carefully planned party as punishment for his previous failure. Every year, people mysteriously disappear from the Yanning district, and the true fate of those individuals remains unknown. In the midst of their conversation, sharp needles fly towards the escaping girl, injected with ketamine stolen by Yanning. Su Jiao eliminates Yinning in his dream world. Meanwhile, the guy on the bus demands the driver play a guessing game, threatening the driver's life as a consequence of losing. Su Jiao's intervention causes the bus to abruptly stop, imprinting the guy's face on the glass. Su Jiao had strategically used the girl to bring him to the bus, instructing her to leave. A man confidently boards the bus, informing the driver that he will handle everything himself. The driver notices bloody scissors protruding from the man's backpack. Su Jiao assures the driver that he's not the target. With the bus empty, Su Jiao turns his attention to the man, emphasizing the necessity of having the driver alive to reach the party. Apologizing for boarding without a ticket, the man proposes a guessing game, suggesting that using a fellow assassin as a ticket might be allowed. Su Jiao dubs the man the Riddler and offers a more intriguing challenge. The Riddler claims to solve any riddle, but Su Jiao presents a simple math question. What is 2 minus 1? After a wrong answer, Su Jiao proves him incorrect with a table analogy. The frustrated Riddler threatens Su Jiao, but the tables turn as Su Jiao outmaneuvers him, making the Riddler his prisoner. A girl enters the bus, ignoring the commotion. The driver advises her not to pay attention and hurry aboard. Su Jiao refers to her as Aunt, provoking her anger. The girl, furious, prepares to attack, but Su Jiao brandishes his chainsaw, deterring her. She takes another seat, annoyed. Another passenger joins, boasting about being among the best killers. He notices the nearly empty bus and confronts Su Jiao. Within seconds, he begs for mercy, defeated and humiliated. Throughout the trip, other would-be killers board the bus, but are swiftly subdued by Su Jiao. The system notifies Su Jiao of completing the extra mission, Master of Assassins. Finally, a menacing man boards the bus, ignoring Su Jiao, while the Riddler predicts his doom. Yinning, wearing a mask, joins them and questions the unusual silence. Su Jiao unveils her true identity, questioning her motives for following him. If you liked the video, subscribe. Here is another video for you to watch more.